Hello everyone, welcome to the Kevin Lee Social. Thank you for tuning in. What initially began as an 8-part series interviewing entrepreneurs to share and inspire how they've successfully pivoted during COVID-19, I have decided not only to continue this series, but also to expand on the scope to understand and learn about people's craft, philosophy, the challenges they face in the industry, and their favorite failures that have helped shape them to become who they are today. By going deeper and understanding different thought leaders, businesses, and industries, the idea is to help cross-pollinate ideas applicable in your life and inspire action in this new norm we live in. I hope you enjoy the show. Thank you. Today we have Wiel Fung. Wiel had studied architecture at the University of New South Wales. Upon graduation, Wiel travelled to the Netherlands where he joined Wiel Arets Architects in 1999 and worked on a diverse range of projects, including houses, apartment towers, stadiums, urban masterplans, and warehouse facilities. Returning to Sydney, Wiel was project architect at Engelen Moore, working on a number of retail, commercial, and residential projects. Wiel has been a guest critic at the Schools of Architecture at the University of New South Wales and University of Technology Sydney, and a sessional design tutor at the University of Sydney. He was jury chair for single residential projects at the New South Wales Chapter AIA Awards in 2017, and a co-jury member for the 2013 Australian Interior Design Awards. Wiel co-founded Co-App with Charles Markell in 2005. Everyone, please help me welcome Wiel. Hi Wiel, thank you for coming onto the show. How are you?
Hi Kev, I'm good, thanks. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you so much for coming on. I've been wanting to do this podcast for a very long time with you. Had to work up the courage to ask you and then finally tee up a good time with you as well.
No, it's great.
Welcome. I wanted to start off with your company Co-App. Is it a multi-generational practice? And if so, could you share with us, where did it all begin?
Yes, I guess the story kind of starts almost 20 years ago. Not that we've been around for 20 years, but when I was a student, I started working with Tina Engelen and Engelen Moore, Engelen Moore Architects, and that was mid-90s, 96, 97. And I started doing almost like an internship there for a while, whilst I was still studying. And then when I finished studying, I went overseas for a bit and came back and went back to Engelen Moore, the practice, till about early 2000s. And then I left that and started Co-App. And then about a year or two later, Tina from Engelen Moore left that company as well and joined our practice. And so it is multi-generational in the sense that she was my mentor at the time when I was working at Engelen Moore. And then in terms of generations, she's 10 years ahead of me in terms of experience and everything. So it was interesting. The first few years was interesting adjusting to that kind of, well, she was my boss and now we're equal. And there was, the issues were only at my end where I felt like I couldn't be an equal with her. Things that we did together, I felt not unworthy, but yeah, just felt like I was always maybe below. But then things started building and yeah, things are absolutely fine now. But the beginning was interesting. It was interesting adapting to that point of view.
Yeah. So it went full circle. It started off with her and then you got out.
Yeah.
Came back and then joined as partners.
Yeah. She was always the fun one at Engelen Moore. And we always clicked and yeah.
I can imagine, as you mentioned, that the dynamics would have been interesting from the beginning.
Yeah. We always knew how we worked. We're very different the way that we work. Yeah. But that's complementary. Yeah.
And just a quick dive in from that, it's the England. Did you guys also design the building, the Republic building that we're in?
No. That building is designed by a firm called Burley Caton Halliday.
Okay.
And she used to work for Burley Caton Halliday.
Okay.
So that's where maybe that aesthetic comes from as well. Yeah, it's a very minimalist, white, early 90s, kind of thing.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that with the backstory. And I've met Tina. She is such a lovely lady. So you both have really lovely energy, and when you guys come by, it's always a joy.
Yeah, we always love chatting with you. No, it's great. Yeah, it's nice that you're just up the road.
Yeah. And you mentioned you travelled to the Netherlands and for work. And I've researched that you've worked at the architecture office Wiel Arets. And could you share with us, how do you think that's influenced or shaped your practice?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think working in the Netherlands I guess it was my first proper job, because it was the first proper job I got after I left university. I went over for a working holiday visa and I ended up staying for a couple of years. The way that they structure things is very studio-based. It almost felt like I was still at university in a strange way. They have teams, at least in that office, there was a design team and a documentation team. And you were either a design architect or a documentation architect, so quite technical or quite creative. And I ended up being on the creative team, mainly probably due to the fact that I was a fresh graduate and had not much experience with the technical aspects of architecture. But that actually was really great because I got a lot of responsibility in a very short amount of time. A few of the senior staff members left when I had arrived, so I got thrown into the deep end on quite a few projects. And I think that was a really great start, potentially, to a career. I didn't get paid very much. Living almost in poverty in the Netherlands isn't great, especially when the produce is really expensive, food's really awful, and I only lasted a couple of years, so I came home. But the experience was amazing, like really, really good. And I think it probably set a basis of how maybe I thought that our studio could work in a way. Not that we're splitting the office up into designers and technicians, but just the fact that people can have a lot of responsibility at quite a young age. I think that's quite a nice thing to do, being thrown in the deep end of things and having to learn very quickly is really good. As I did also at Engelen Moore when I came back from the Netherlands. When I came back to Sydney, also got thrown in the deep end on a few projects where you had to make lots of mistakes and learn very quickly.
Yeah. And I could imagine as well, I think with any discipline, when you're overseas and you're learning, everyone kind of approaches it slightly differently in any discipline. And I can imagine, would it be the same in yours as well?
Yeah.
Like how they do it in Europe versus in Australia versus in Asia versus... Yeah,
totally. Yeah. But yeah, Holland was great.
I did a bit of research as well and found out, is it right that your parents are from Hong Kong?
Yeah.
And you arrived when you were 2, maybe?
4 or 5.
4 or 5, okay.
Yeah.
And did they have a Chinese restaurant as well?
Yeah, they were like fully... I grew up sort of being within either a takeaway shop or a Chinese restaurant or some kind of food service or hospitality environment. They were very hardworking, working 18, 20 hours in a day, because that's what you do when you're in hospitality.
Yep.
And it's like a very different... Neither of... my parents, as with I think a lot of immigrants, they have different qualifications when they were in Hong Kong, and when they moved here, their qualifications went up to scratch. So then they had to find something else to do.
Yeah.
My mum was a nurse and my dad was an optical dispenser. Yeah. And the English wasn't great, and so my uncle, who was already here, helped them set things up. They purchased a business, and then off they went. Yeah.
And with your heritage being from Hong Kong and your upbringing in hospitality as well, how do you think that's influenced your outlook on work?
Yeah, just being quite hardworking, I think, but there's always a balance of pleasure and work. But yeah, I think growing up in that environment, we didn't have many holidays. And at all, like there were never family trips in summer or anything like that. It was just always working. So I don't feel like I missed out on anything, but maybe that I don't take very many holidays myself, and maybe that's ingrained in me a little bit. I don't feel like I need to.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I can resonate.
Yeah.
A lot of the Asian families don't take holidays. They just work through everything.
No, they just work through everything. Yeah.
The only thing I take off is for Chinese New Year.
Yeah, exactly. That's the only holiday, really.
What Christmas, what New Year, we just wake up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
When everyone takes off, it's time to make money.
Yep.
And obviously, COAP has many accolades and you're very well respected within the community. I've spoken to colleagues in the industry, people that know you, and everyone really looks up to you and respects you, and they all think you're an amazing human being, which I think so as well. I agree.
That's crazy, but thank you.
I've seen that with the business of your kind of caliber, COAP still likes to remain a small to medium-sized office. Can you share with us more on why that is the case?
Yeah, we just don't want to be too stressed out at the end of the day. We like doing big projects, and if we do, we try to raft or collaborate with a bigger office to do those bigger projects. But we don't really want to burden ourselves to being a big office. Plus, at the end of the day, our staff are our family. It's quite intimate. We want to know everyone. We want to, not that we're control freaks, we like to know what everyone's doing. We like to know what's going on. And for us, the sweet spot is eight people in the office. For Tina and I, that's really good size. And we're still able to do projects that we like, and a very broad range of typology, types of projects. So yeah, keeping small for us, keeping nimble as well. We went through the GFC relatively unscathed because we were small, like we were 3 or 4 at the time. We were able to weather through that without calamity. And I think if we were a bigger office, it would have been much more difficult.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of beauty in working with constraints and with a smaller team. Even if the projects become bigger or whatever the case, it just means you have to be more creative or have to think outside how we're going to approach this. Similarly to my space is just quite small, and it's how do we scale up but without space, with the limit of how many people we can fit there. There's only so much I can do, there's only so much people I can fit, and then we have to get really creative from there. Expand.
And that sort of trickles down to our projects as well, where we actually like really complicated, and not that we go out looking for them, but a lot of our projects end up or are very constrained, either with budget or site or whatever it is. But that always fuels your creativity to resolve the issues and resolve the problems, and then you get much more creative solutions for things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think this ties in really nicely to the next question, because during this recording, as you mentioned, you were talking about the challenges of GFC. During this recording, we're still going through the COVID-19 period. And architecture is a very hands-on type of craft, whether you're modeling or dealing with materials, textures, or even meeting with clients. How are you managing your projects at the moment, or dealing with the constraints of COVID?
Yeah, we're lucky in that at the end of last year, probably around October, November, or even before then, we transferred all of our servers and things to the cloud, not knowing that this was going to happen, obviously, but everyone had access to the server remotely. So that really helped when everyone had to work from home. And then forcing us to go online and have Zoom meetings and meet clients via Zoom, and especially via these sort of interfaces, has been actually very good. We've all got iPads now. We all mark up and take notes and things. Just thought that was a lot more efficient, and everyone loves it. It's working really well. So it's, in that sense, it's been really good for us it's almost made us evolve quicker than we would have, the COVID situation, because I think we were probably a little bit reluctant we're still printing drawings, and we were still marking up hard copies of drawings and wasting lots of paper, but now we're hardly ever using the printer. We're just marking up things on PDF, and we probably should have done that years ago, but because of this, it's forced us to do it now. So that's been quite good. And then also the other thing was that we didn't have any projects that were currently under construction. I know a lot of other practices have had issues and struggled with that, going to site and having restrictions on site. But yeah, coincidentally, we haven't had anything getting built during this time.
Yeah.
Lots of things are still in design development or going to DA. So yeah.
That's I'm really happy to hear that you guys haven't been too affected by the current pandemic, and that you guys are able to improve your efficiency in your systems and take that on and adopt it very well. It's been quite a challenge for a lot of businesses out there, so it's great that you guys are doing well in that sense.
Yeah, we're not necessarily getting more jobs, but from what we've got, we're doing things, I think, more efficiently.
Yeah,
potentially.
And I'm curious to see what's your opinion on how it will continue to affect the industry moving forward. How do you think it will shake things up or change things?
There's a lot of talk about, in terms of building typology, how commercial buildings are now getting more and more empty because a lot of businesses are realizing that lots of people can just work from home. And they may never even have to come back to the office, or what does the office actually mean these days, or will mean. Things like co-sharing workspaces and hot desking might all disappear now because of germs. Going back to everyone having their dedicated desks and things like that. There's big talk about that. Yeah, industry is always the first to get hit during any kind of financial downturn, and big multi-res projects and things like that, you can sense that they've all slowed down, obviously. But your mums and dads who are wanting to do renovations, I've heard there's a lot more happening at the moment because everyone's staying at home and everyone wants to improve their homes because they are staying at home.
I've been hearing a lot more about that as well, where people, instead of, obviously they can't travel at the moment and they can't really spend in that category, and so instead they're making their home environments a better place to stay, so they're investing in that. I don't know what percentage or what demographic that is compared to everyone else. It's also a luxury as well, that end. And do you prefer to work from home? No. You like to separate the home and work life?
Yeah, definitely. Even when I did have to work from home for those few months, my partner was working in the dining room. I was quite happy to do so. I had a big setup of monitors and things, but then I had to be in a separate room that didn't feel like home. So I was in the front room and room that I never usually go into. So I needed that. Needed to be separated.
I understand. I think it's important to have that separation or that boundary. And it gets me personally into that more focused work zone rather than so easy to just fall back into something else.
And also just for simple, I told everyone in the office that if you're working from home, make sure you start work in work clothes. Simple things like that. Have a shower, get dressed, go to work, even if it's going to be a meter away from your bed. Don't start work in pajamas or
Talking about clothes, I think it's a good segue. You're obviously a very fashionable man. I've heard you're into, I'm not sure if this is the correct term, but high fashion. Do you use that in relation to your work at all, in terms of how you think of things?
Oh, yeah, totally. Obviously, love design, fashion, clothes. I follow designers. I'm always very interested, as I do with graphic designers and furniture designers, just any designer. I just love filtering and getting influenced by different disciplines. And quite often Tina and I would see something like a colorway or something that the designer have done, and that would influence us in the way that we might approach a project, or a texture, or the way that something's made. It's always really stimulating looking at other things. I think we might look at other disciplines sometimes more than other architects' work. Quite often we're drawing influences from other aspects of design. And clothing's one of them. Like, I'm really into vintage stuff at the moment, looking back at old things from the 80s and 90s that I could never afford, but then finding them secondhand. And, it's been really nice.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's great to look at different industries, whether it's design or in fashion or wherever it may be, for that cross-pollination of ideas. It's always interesting to see how they came up with it, or what was the thought process behind it, or materials, or how did what came up, what was the ethos, and then you draw influences, as you said, into your own work. I think that's where the innovation, creativity starts. As I mentioned before, I've observed that your team really respect and look up to you, and as you've got this really, every time you guys walk in, it's got this family vibe, and you rock in together, and then everyone orders together and everyone stands around together. And every week it's that, in the beginning of the week, it's that, oh, how was your weekend, and everything. And I'm always fascinated in ways that leaders lead and how they manage their teams. Do you have a team management philosophy, or is there a way that you take it?
Totally not. I don't know. It's interesting that you observed that. We said we're a happy team, I think. But I think it's just, I don't know, it's a hard question to answer. Maybe it's just the way Tina and I are, just generally. She's quite fun and bubbly, and I guess I'm a bit more calm and reserved, but we give everyone a sense of ownership for what they do in the office. We try not to be too tyrannical about things. And we do, for us, it's really important that we all get on and that we feel like family. But there's no, we don't have a philosophy or an approach to doing it consciously.
So you mentioned you give them that responsibility, you're not over their shoulders too much about certain projects. Do you guys do team bonding activities often, or anything?
No, not at all. Completely not into that type of thing. Okay, there are things that maybe we do that aren't necessarily in that realm. So let's say we try to all go out for lunch at least once a week, office lunch, and we'd go somewhere. And so things like that we try to do, so that everyone is still engaged and everyone doesn't just feel like work.
Thank you for sharing that. Another funny comment that came up is when I asked around about you, Will's one of the calmest people I've ever known. He never gets upset. And not that I am as calm as you, but people showed me I have a calm energy as well. But you're probably the calmest person, one of the calmest people I've ever come across, from another calm guy to another calm guy.
So that's really calm. Do I have a pulse? I don't know.
I personally meditate, and I have a few other practices. But do you have any practices that help you, or is it more of an innate thing?
For me, it's probably more innate. I might not show any stress, but sometimes I'm like all curdled up inside, but it's not showing necessarily. And also I'm a Scorpio. I can be very calm, but then I can strike. If I have been known to occasionally to strike.
My sister's a Scorpio. I know what you're talking about.
yeah. But it takes a lot for me to get to that threshold, I think. I
think as a leader as well, I think it's a great quality to have, that you're very calm, but then you strike when needed as well.
It's funny that you talk about meditation and things. When I was at high school, there was and I don't know if this has helped me to be the way I am, but there was this strange elective course at high school that I went to called Eastern Philosophy. And all we did was just meditate for an hour in this class. And this is when I was in year 7 or 8 or something.
That's a long time.
Yeah, no, it was really good. And maybe that's helped me a bit, but maybe not, I'm not sure. But there is, yeah. And I have tried doing that sort of mindfulness thing and having an app, but I'm way too impatient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To keep a Year 7 student meditating for an hour is a very strong feat. I think if it's built into you, it's done a good job.
Yeah, it was good. It was really good. Lots of people wanted to get into that class, obviously, because all you did was just fall asleep, effectively, for an hour.
Yay, do nothing class.
Yeah, exactly. But it was great.
I hear you are a big fan of modernist architecture. Could you share with the audience what that means and what is it about modernist architecture that excites you?
I think it's always been modernism has always been just that moment. And I guess there's different ways of defining modernism, but for me, it's that moment when new technologies and new ways of building liberated us from the past. So from the neoclassical, we all of a sudden built things on slender columns and had big windows and concrete and all those sorts of things. And it's always been that idea of the future and the new. So I think for me, that's really interesting and really exciting. And even now, it's the first bits of what we call modernism maybe happened in the early 1900s or even late 1800s. But even now, when you look back at those buildings, they're still incredibly contemporary and incredibly modern. And that kind of just illustrates how influential and what a big leap forward that was. Saying that when I travel, or used to travel, going to Italy or wherever and seeing antiquity and seeing old, classical, Renaissance, whatever it might be, those old, like they're becoming more uplifting as well for me. Just seeing we don't build that way anymore. We don't have that craftsmanship anymore, which is, I think, what modernism maybe obliterated. It's getting that, slowly see some projects where that sort of idea of craft and idea of detail is coming back, but without being pastiche, still doing it in a way that's contemporary. So, yeah, I think that's what modernism excites me. It's just the notion of a big leap forward and doing things in a new way.
Yep.
And that and it was a whole movement, not just architecture, obviously, art, the way we think, industry.
Are there any examples of places or galleries that you would recommend? In
terms of a building or just a place to hang out?
Maybe a building that represents it.
Yeah, it's something local actually. It's something I always love, and I bang on about this quite a bit, the National Art Gallery in Canberra.
Yep.
Big concrete brutalist building built in the late 70s, early 80s by Colin Madigan. And really epic building. Not necessarily a new type of building for its time, but just the way that it integrates the landscape. There's a lot of native landscape around it that works really beautifully with the brutalism. The spaces, when you go into those those sort of concrete buildings, there's a smell to them that is amazing. Like this sort of musty, concretey, earthy smell that I love when I go into those types of buildings. But I love that building. And just the spaces, it's not even there for the artwork. It's the spaces, the ramps, the context. Yeah, it's a really great building.
Yeah. Every time you go there, it has there's this sense of feeling that you get when you arrive and you walk in and everything you feel like you can almost shift in time.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And anyone that comes across COAP can see it's been shortlisted and taken many awards. I'm sure it hasn't always been this way. Do you have a favorite failure that has set you up for later success?
Many failures. Maybe not epic, but more disappointments, or realizing that we did things a certain way that wasn't great. One example is that we're fired from a project, and we thought was going quite well, and it was mainly just a furniture specification project, and doing interiors for a house that was getting built. Not our design, the house was brought in as the interior designers. And I think we went into it thinking that we would be quite loose about it, and just the clients had what we thought quite an eclectic taste in things, so we played up on that and were quite flexible and moved with what the clients wanted. But at the end of the day, I don't think that's what they wanted at all. They just wanted us to tell them what they wanted, if that makes sense.
Yep.
We didn't understand that at all. I thought we were being nice and listening to them. So yeah, in some way they fired us because we gave them what they want. Which just sounds really weird, but it made us approach and just think about and analyze clients a lot more, and just step back and think about each project more analytically, I think. And maybe also being a bit stronger in our assertiveness to being more assertive with clients in order to get things. I think they respect you when you're a little bit. Yep. I think, for some reason, I think clients maybe respect you a little bit more when you do tell them when things are wrong. Yeah, rather than just playing along with it. It's like the bouncer outside a nightclub not letting you into the nightclub.
Yep.
That type of thing. You want to get in even more. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand. I can imagine it's a very challenging position that you guys are normally put in, because not speaking for everyone, but not everyone knows exactly what they want.
No.
Everyone's very clear on what they want, and if they did, it'd make your job a whole lot easier.
Yeah, or worse, because then we'd just be drafted. Like we'd just be drafting everybody's ideas rather than, coming up with the ideas.
Absolutely, yeah. And that process of analyzing what they want, or I'm always very curious about that process, because I enjoy the psychology part of it, and it's how do you, for you guys at least, how do you guys even begin to start to analyze to understand what they want on their side?
Yeah, it's really hard. Lots of architects do questionnaire sheets at the beginning of projects to flesh out the brief and flesh out what the clients want. We don't tend to do that, probably because we never got around to creating that list, but always just ask them to give us a brief at the beginning, and we come back with them with a counter brief which might add what we think, our layer of thinking to the brief. But it's something that's constantly evolving. The project might start off one way and then end up in a completely different scope. Yeah, it's really hard. There's no right answer to it. Yeah, we've started on another project. We once started it as a $50,000 kitchen renovation, and ended up being a $2 million complete refit of the house.
Wow.
Just because it just evolved. Well, the kitchens, they want to do the kitchen, but then to the kitchen properly, you have to do this, and then it just grew and grew, and then all of a sudden we were stripping out the entire house and rebuilding it. So yeah, it's sometimes, like you said, the clients don't know what they want sometimes at all, unless you start fleshing things out and really getting into what the issues are.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's also dealing with married couples, and being an architect, you're almost like a marriage counsellor sometimes.
I've experienced some of your work firsthand and working with your team as well on one of the briefs. And I was actually thinking about it yesterday, and I thought in my head, I'm like, where did I keep that file? Because I really want to keep it, because I honestly think I'm going to use it in another space. And I really liked the idea that you guys came back with, basing it on the heritage of how it used to be. So I have a cafe restaurant space in Darlinghurst, and for those that don't know, and I asked Will and his team to help brief us on a refurb kind of renovation, and they came back with this amazing idea, basing it off how it used to be a cafe back in the 1980s. And I was very fortunate to meet the owners of that cafe back in the 1980s, and he sent me all these amazing photos. And then Will and his team put together this amazing signature piece that reflected heritage. I really, honestly, if the complete decision was completely up to me, I'd definitely go back with that design. So in future projects, I think I would definitely consider using something along those lines, if not the same.
Yeah, it was like the idea of lineage and heritage and what came before, not being necessarily nostalgic, but sometimes when you're starting from scratch and you're trying to draw some ideas and context, sometimes history and heritage is a good way to start off with. And if there is something there to draw out, it can blossom into something quite good.
Yeah, and especially in a commercial space like the one I'm in, there's a story to it. It adds to the branding, and there's something that people can chew on. They can just have that idea to stew on and think, okay, there's a lot more depth to this space than just meadery.
How it's evolved now, I think, is like that as well, because it's gone back one step back to what it was, and there is that idea of there's substance to it.
Yeah,
it's not just it's not just superficial.
Yeah. And that was another classic example of how a very small build just went bad.
Yes.
I remember coming with you and saying, okay, I've got a very tight budget, Will.
Yes.
And then later on.
And then it's like, oh my God, you've got unexpended props. How do you afford that with that budget?
Yes, that went a bit nuts. But anyway, all time.
Yeah. It looks great.
Thank you. I have a question. Do you have any morning or evening routines?
Yeah, totally. Probably more morning than evening. Wake up at 6:30, have light breakfast, and then go on a dog walk in Callan Park. We live quite close to a park, and early morning walks are really good. Just helps me reset, start the day. Especially now when it's really cold, I love it. I love going out, and I'm just in shorts and a puffer jacket, and it's nice getting cold for me. I think it's my Canberra side coming out. Always living in Sydney, I miss those really cold winters. But so definitely a morning routine. That's every day. Yeah. And then on weekends, there's organic markets just across the road, so we always go there in the morning and grab our groceries, and very mundane, doing the same things over and over again, but I quite like it. I have no complaints.
No, I think that's great that you're able to take that walk in the morning to sort of nature and then have reach to fresh market produce and stuff on the weekend. So I think that's a really beautiful way to live. Yeah. I'm jealous of that lifestyle. Do you have a favorite movie or books you'd recommend?
Ooh. I either like really trashy movies or like quite profound things. I talk about the profound ones because I don't think you really want to know the trashy ones. No, actually, one of my favorite movies is Best in Show, which is a parody about those big show dog events.
Yes.
This one's set in New York and follows these 6 couples with their dogs and going to the dog show, and it's hilarious. The Best in Show, it's a very good movie. Always loved the Star Wars movies just because they're nostalgic. Love them. And Gattaca is another favourite movie of mine as well, which is about a not too distant future. And this was done in the 90s, I think, Gattaca, late 90s or 2000s. Ethan Hawke, Jude Law, Uma Thurman.
Yeah, yes.
Yes, and it's all about this world where people are born with the right genetics, and then so it's not too distant, and people get scanned with the genetics, and if you have the right combination, you get a certain job. And it's a beautiful story, but it's also filmed beautifully in the most amazing buildings. So a beautiful Frank Lloyd Wright building and a beautiful Louis Kahn building in America. And it's really good.
Thank you for sharing. I'll definitely have to check up a few of them and watch it and report back to you. Are there any new beliefs or behaviors that have had a positive impact in your life in the recent years, you think?
New beliefs? No, not really. Not particularly religious or follow anything too philosophical. I do believe it's something, but but I'm not necessarily atheist or anything.
Yep.
Yeah. But there haven't been anything, no events or anything that have triggered any new way of thinking or a new way of approaching anything. I'm still waiting for that to happen, probably. But yeah, at the moment, pretty content.
Yeah.
How things are.
Pending.
Pending, exactly. Yeah.
And as we're coming to the tail end of this conversation, if you could only send one single line of SMS text to yourself 5 years ago, what would it be?
It's a hard one. I know you did send me this previously, like beforehand, and I've been thinking about it. I don't know, Kevin. It's a really hard question.
Yeah, you guys were stuck on this one for a while.
Yeah, it's a really hard one. I don't think there's anything profound. I think it might be... I think 5 years ago I didn't have Netflix.
Yep.
No, it'd be something like subscribe to Netflix.
So just like a list of titles.
Open up. Yeah, exactly. It'll open up your mind. And it has been fantastic.
Actually, quickly on that note, have you been watching anything interesting on Netflix lately?
Yeah, probably a bit slow to start with it, but Schitt's Creek has been really...
I haven't checked it out yet, so I've got to see it.
yeah, really good. And coincidentally, a few of the same actors and writers as, or not writers, but a few of the same people in Schitt's Creek are in Best in Show, that movie that I was talking about. So yeah, that's really good. Yeah, and then lots of RuPaul's Drag Race, and I really need to watch mindless things at the end of the day. I think it just helps me not think about work and just, again, reset and just be completely frivolous.
Yeah.
I can't, like on weekends, my partner's always wanting me to watch these really heavy movies, and I'm like, no, I can't do it. I just have to watch something completely stupid.
I agree. Sometimes when I'm traveling way back, and I'm a voracious reader or like podcast listener, but sometimes, especially on the way back after a long day, I just need to go down that YouTube black hole. Just look at the stupid stuff. Just to
totally. Yeah.
And finally, Will, how can people reach out or learn more about you or Co?
Our website, co-ap.com, or we're on Instagram as well, or I'm on Instagram, will.fung is my handle. I don't post, I'm not very instant, so I post a lot of old stuff, like old travels and things, dogs, architecture, so if you're into that type of thing. But maybe you get a bit of an insight into how I am through my posts, maybe.
Actually, I had one more question. Is there a story to how the name Co-App came along?
Yeah, totally. When we started the practice, I really wanted it to call it Co-op. But of course, when you go to the Department of Fair Trading, you can't call your company Co-op because it's not actually a co-op.
Yeah.
So then it turned into Co-App, and then I was like, how can we justify Co-App? So it's literally a acronym of collaborative architecture practice. And when we started, it was that, but it was just too much of a mouthful. So we just it was just Co-App.
Gotcha.
So that's how we got Co-App.
Yeah, I was thinking, where did that come from? So curious about that. Will, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. It's really been fun having this casual conversation with you. I know I see you often on a week-to-week basis, but it's good to sit down and really have a chat about all things Will.
Yeah, it was nice. It was nice talking about myself. Thank you.
Dramatic response. All right, well, I will catch you around. Take care.
Catch you around.
Thank you so much.
You too. Have a good weekend.
All right, well, thank you.
See ya.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the show. All the links to the show notes will be available at kevinleesocial.com, spelled Kevinly. Conversely, if you have any interviews that you'd love to recommend, please send it over to kevinleesocial@gmail.com. I'd love to connect. Thank you. Until the next episode.